Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fuel for Success, episode number 31. It is Wednesday, and I love Wednesdays. As you know, every Wednesday we talk about spirituality here on Fuel for Success. I'm excited to see all our friends that are on here. Great to see you this morning, Matt. And wow, what a great topic we have today.
Good to see you, my friend. You know what? I want everyone to be reminded that we have a chat box over here. Yesterday, there was a lot of very good feedback and people sharing ideas and thoughts. I personally get a lot out of those. Remember that every day we do our talk show, fuelforsuccess.tv. You can watch any previous episode. And remember that Monday we deal with health and weight loss. Tuesday, we do a lot of like basic life coaching and motivation. Wednesday, Mike, we always deal with spirituality. And then tomorrow, one of our favorite topics, business and entrepreneurship. And then every Friday, family and relationships, my friend. So good to see you. I see that you're finally starting to get some nice weather up there, man.
Yeah, it was 15 degrees this morning, so that for us qualifies
An
as
improvement.
extremely good weather. It's up almost 40 degrees from yesterday, and it looks like it's actually going to be like in the upper 30s next week, which is just amazing. It felt
Well,
so
what's
good.
even more amazing is you're going to be in Nashville, Tennessee next week.
That's right. As soon as it starts to get nice here, I'm leaving. I'm driving south. So,
You know what dawned on me? I'll see you once a month for this whole year. I'll at least see you once every 3 or 4 weeks in person. You and Carol.
it's going to be awesome.
That's
Amazing.
going to be fun.
We're going to be doing at least one of these shows a month from the road. That's
Oh,
cool.
yeah, that'll be cool. That'll be real cool. Hey, got some awesome things happening with Nashville Mission 25, man.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
We're going to do a show either this Thursday or Saturday about Nashville Mission 25 and break down everything that's going on. Man, people are registering. I just talked to people yesterday. They're bringing youth groups from Georgia, from Tennessee. So it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be I'm looking forward to connecting with everyone, man. Someone sold their car to go to this mission trip, bro.
Isn't that amazing? Amazing.
That is amazing.
That will be an investment that will be worthwhile. God blesses those sort of investments and those sort of sacrifices, and it's going to be an incredible time. We're about to finalize the schedule. There's a few loose details, but man, the stuff that we've got lined up is going to be so much fun, so exciting, and everybody that's going to be there is just going to have a great time and be blessed. Really be empowered to serve. It'll be good.
Yes, sir. Well, today we have one of our favorite subjects, my friend. We're going to be talking about spirituality. Let everybody know, Mike, that all the questions that we ask, they come in from our viewers through email or text. Guys, you literally, in life, if you have a question that you would like our feedback about, please email us or text us. Mike, why don't you throw that number up there that people can text, especially for those that want to get a weekly motivational text? In fact, getting ready to send one out today. Just keep people inspired and motivated out there. But this would probably be the best number for them to text in questions or throw an email up there, Mike, where they could email their questions. This could be about anything because remember, we cover just about every subject there is to cover that will help your life. So there we go. So
That's
take a
right.
look at that number, text at start, right, Mike?
Right. If you want to receive the weekly motivational messages to sort of get on that list to be able to get those text messages, just text the word at start to 727-341-5599. And or you can just text in if you've got questions, send those, and those will come to Matt and myself, and we can field those questions. Even if you're watching this show and maybe you're on a device that you can't chat in the box, you can text us right now, and I'll see that message come in. You can text us at that number, and we'll see that question. Also, you can bless you.
Thank you, my friend.
Um, you can also email me, mike@mattmaddox.com, and I'll any of those questions we'll go ahead and field those and get them in the queue for our shows. And we've got a few questions today, and I'm going to start out with one, Matt, that someone has asked regarding temptation, and Let me ask your opinion about this, and what your thoughts are from a from a practical, from a spiritual standpoint. How can someone overcome temptation in their life?
That's a good question. I'll start off with a quote that I share with my son often. You can't keep a bird from flying over your head, but you can keep a bird from making a nest in your hair. So, in other words, temptation is something that's going to be around us all of our life, and understand that
Hmm.
every person is tempted in different areas. There are people that are highly tempted with sexual temptation, with alcohol, with nicotine, with food, tempted with money. So, the first thing you have to do is you have to identify and become brutally honest about the things that you feel tempted with. See, the problem, Mike, I honestly believe when it comes to spirituality, we've covered on this a little bit, is a lack of honesty. There's no way that you can win if you're not honest, brutally honest. So, the moment that you admit, okay, I am struggling in this area, I am highly tempted in this area, whatever it may be. I don't care if you got to write it on a 3x5 card. Of course, burn it, never incriminate yourself, but write it down, and, get it out and admit it. Say, take it to God and say, God, I need you to know. I know you know this, but I'm going to tell you the Bible says that if we confess, we would be healed, that we actually should confess our faults to one another. Now, that is actually a biblical principle, which leads me to point number 2 on how to overcome temptation. You need a confidant. You need somebody in your life that you trust with your darkest secrets,
Hmm.
your weakest temptation, struggle. If you don't have somebody that you can call and say, look, I got to be honest with you. This is what I'm struggling with. I'm about to go out of my mind. I'm losing it here. Then you're going to struggle, and it's going to be even harder. Believe it or not, there's a lot of healing that takes place just in confessing, even if you don't actually do it. The problem is, Mike, we're so afraid of being vulnerable. We're
Right.
so afraid of being transparent because we're afraid that someone A is going to air our dirty laundry out. The biggest crime that you can commit on that you could commit on this planet, the biggest crime that literally should get you life in prison, no possibility of parole, is to break someone's trust that's confided in you about a sin or a weakness or a trouble. Like a lot of times, you know, people have confided their sins or their struggles in me, and I know about that. And those people are also very powerfully used of God. And I'm not going to destroy them, or I'm not going to air their dirty laundry out. I'm going to pray for them and believe that God's going to help them overcome it. But I'm also not going to judge them when I see them being used of God. See, a lot of us are afraid of being judged or criticized. So what happens is the worst thing that can happen is for it to develop into secret sin, or for you to become secretive about your temptation. Listen, God and your closest friend needs to know about your struggles. They need to know, because that way they can keep you accountable. They can pray for you. I read a very powerful article one day called Why Pastors Fail. They interviewed 600 pastors that fell into immorality, that had adulterous affairs. 600 pastors. And they came up with 3 answers, 3 reasons why pastors fell into adultery. One was because they weren't praying like they should, because prayer and consistent Bible reading is the death of temptation. It literally weakens temptation in you, because we either walk in the spirit or we walk in the flesh. There's no middle ground, there's no gray areas. You're either walking in the spirit, or you're just, because you are flesh and you are human. So if you're not prayed up and you're tired and you're fatigued and you're weak, which I'm going to talk about, the danger of being tired and the danger of knowing when you're weary, you're tired, knowing different temptation spots. Like for me, I'm extra tempted when I'm exhausted. So when I'm exhausted, I need to be very careful, right? And that can be very dangerous. But the number one reason why these pastors fell into immorality, Mike, was they weren't praying like they should. The second reason was they never thought it would happen to them. There's actually a scripture in the Bible that says, take heed lest a man that thinketh he standeth, lest he fall. In other words, you meet a lot of people that they're not humble about other people's weaknesses or sins. They're judgmental, they're harsh, and they're not careful with their life. So because they're not careful with their life, it's like that scripture that says, can a man take a coal and put it in his lap and not be burned? You know, the Bible also said, whosoever breaketh the hedge, a serpent will bite him. The only way the enemy can defeat you through temptation is for you to start breaking boundaries and hedges. We all need hedges in our life, Mike. We all need barriers and boundaries, especially people that are married. The second thing that those pastors says, we never thought it would happen to us, right? And then
Yeah.
the third reason that they said they fell into sin was because they were not accountable to somebody. I have built within my life sources of accountability where I'm literally brutally honest with three people. One of them is my pastor. Like, I literally send him a monthly report of what's going on in my life, and in that report is always areas that I'm struggling with, whatever they may be. So don't even try to assume. But I'm honest about it because I know he's not going to kill me, and I know he's not going to tell half of Pentecost. You know, the worst thing you can ever do is share something with somebody that doesn't have your back, somebody that will bring you down, somebody that will crucify you, somebody that will judge you. There's no hope for you to escape temptation when you don't have a support network of people that protect you and guard you and pray for you and cover your back. We need more people in our lives, Mike, that have our back. We don't have enough people in this planet that have our back like we should.
I I totally agree with that. Let me grab a follow-up question on that. And you mentioned that there's three people that that you have in your life that you can be completely accountable and completely open. And you said, you also mentioned, your closest friend. and and how do you, and then you said something along the lines of, you've sort of developed these three people. How do you find those people in your life? How do you develop, or maybe even just another way to look at it, how can you identify those safe people in your life?
Man, that is actually a very, very good question. So for me, Mike, I always put out feelers before I go deep with someone. I'm a Bible says to watch and pray. So I watch people. I watch who they talk about. I watch what they talk about. I do they break other people's confidence? You know,
Mm,
when I ask somebody something and they said, "Man, Matt, I really would love to tell you, but I gave my word." You know, as much as that might frustrate me because I want to know,
yeah.
there is an element that says, okay, I'm dealing with a person of good character here. Because there's something about when you give your word to somebody that I
Hmm.
will take this to my grave. Now, I will say this: I would never keep a confidence from somebody that is a close friend of mine. Somebody will say, I want to tell you something about Mike, but I don't want you to tell him. I stop him. Look, I'm
Right.
going to be real with you. I can't do that, you know. So might need to find somebody else because listen, you gotta have that loyalty. You know, there's loyalty is a missing element in our relationships, So how you find it, Mike, is by maybe testing a little bit with something small. I remember what Anthony Mangan told me. He said, what I do is I give people information that I don't care that gets out, but I tell them I don't want it to get out. So if it gets, he told me in hiring a secretary or a staff member, he said sometimes I'll give them a piece of information that's not going to destroy me or whatever. And he said, and I'll test and see how good they guard that. If they don't guard it well, then I know they can't be trusted with bigger things. So a lot of times maybe Mike in finding somebody, test them with something small and see. I mean, some people are just gossipers. They're talkers. All they do is talk. I think that we're better off finding people that are not talkers. People that if you called and I'm not talking about like, there are certain things that you can't keep confidential. as someone that maybe abused a child or
Right.
raped somebody or murdered somebody. Obviously, you're not going to keep that kind of stuff confidential. But I'm talking about just look, Mike. If you called me and said, "Look, Matt, they legalized marijuana here in Minnesota, and I'm really just struggling with this, man. I want to smoke one so bad." You should be able to do that. And I should be able to say, okay, Mike, I appreciate your transparency. I don't think less of you. I really don't. I'm going to pray with you on this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need those kinds of relationships that we can be that honest and feel that safe. I read a book one time. I think everybody should read it. You can go ahead and reference it here. It's called Safe
Hmm.
People. You've got to have safe people in your inner circle if you're going to be successful.
Good. We'll link that up in the show notes. Hey, I also like what you said earlier about being that safe person,
Good to see you,
and
buddy.
and those attributes that you find a safe that you want in a safe person, someone that you can confide in, you become that person. And I think one of the guiding principles of life is that the kind of person that we become, that we strive to be, is the kind of person that we also attract, and we tend to be around people like that. So the more we are the kind of person that is trustworthy, the more trustworthy people will be around us. um,
You're right, man. You are exactly right. And Mike, I think what happens is when you share your temptation or your weakness or your struggles with somebody, right? There's a freedom in that, but it is also freeing for other people because we are all struggling, my friend. Now, here's the problem. We all struggle in different areas. That's why we cannot be judgmental. We cannot be critical of other people's weaknesses or temptation. You might have a temptation, Mike, that I'm so strong in that I might look at and think, how are you even tempted in this, right? And
right.
vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Um, you know, I think that you made a very good point. I'm just having fun here. Steve is saying we're dealing with the same temptation here in Colorado. It's medical marijuana. Yeah, we opened a can of worms right there, my friend,
Yeah,
for sure.
just to be clear, marijuana is not legal in Minnesota, and I'm not tempted by it. So just it was a hypothetical.
But if you are, you're safe to tell us here at Fuel for Success, and we're not going to judge you.
Well, I appreciate that. Um, hey, that's excellent stuff on accountability and overcoming temptation. To first of all confess it to someone, find somebody that you can be accountable to, and I think when it's like anything
I'll
when you
give you an
put focus
example.
on it. Yeah.
Go ahead, let you finish. You finish on what you're saying. That's good stuff.
When you set your focus on something, maybe right now you're sitting here and you're thinking, man, I really don't have anyone in my life, and maybe it's just because you haven't purposed it. You haven't decided that you need that in your life, and when you make the decision that I need to find two or three people that I can be open and transparent with, and then you set about that process, you have to take the first step to go on a long hike. So get started on it, and once you set your mind to it, then you'll begin to see opportunities, and you'll begin to those doors will open.
Absolutely. And we don't, our pride and the risk of vulnerability. Vulnerability is missing in our society. It's missing in our relationships. And so that's why there's not more healing in these areas. That's why you look up on the news and you see people do whacked out stuff, or you see people that we thought were like these spiritual giants do crazy stuff because they have to live up to this image. Take a person like me. I'm in a fishbowl, right? I have to live up to a certain image. We both do, right? So very few people can handle your weaknesses. That's why we're not as open and vulnerable with people and real. I just made up my mind to be real. I'm very real and very transparent because I've learned that you actually have a better chance at being truly spiritual and free by being honest and transparent and real. These people that have these dark secrets judge others because they feel guilty themselves
Yeah.
and they're not honest and they're not real. I mean, I'm real, my friend, and I with the people that I trust, I'm real with. And I think we all need that. So make it your mission to be that kind of person in someone's life and make it your mission to trust to find somebody like that in your life. Okay?
It's good. It's good stuff. I'm going to jump to another question we got that came in, and it's a little bit different take. But so let's say we've got somebody on here. Maybe they're new to Christianity, or maybe they're just sort of starting on their walk with God, or maybe they just have a renewed interest in studying the Bible, um, and they want to get started in study of the Word of God, which I think is key and important to discipleship. What is your best advice for someone just starting to study the Bible?
I would always tell people if they're just starting to study the Bible to start with the Gospels. I tell everybody that I'm reaching and that I'm trying to help is look, start by reading the Gospels because there's nothing easier to understand. There's nothing more encouraging. There's nothing more uplifting than reading about Jesus. So
Yeah.
that would be number one. Number two was I would immediately get people involved in reading the book of Psalms and the book of Proverbs. Those are the best books of the Bible, in my opinion. Please don't be mad at me for saying that. I'm giving you my opinion. Those are the best books of the Bible. And then I would say the book of Acts. And then from there, you can take people and you can show them different ways to study the Bible. There's different ways to do it. You can have people read the Bible through, which I don't advise for someone that's just starting. It will freak them out. You know what I'm saying? They'll read that thing and think, I've had many people start in the Old Testament and they're like, my God, this stuff is crazy. Unless they understand that a lot of stuff, you have to understand culture.
Right.
You have to understand, the law of that day, and if people don't know that, they can get very confused
A lot
studying
of
the Bible.
a lot of context there. Yeah.
Absolutely. It can be very contradictory if you don't know how to study it. That's why I say get into a Bible study group if you're just starting out. Find somebody that has studied and have them teach you how to study. Another way that I teach people, Mike, is to do word studies.
Yeah.
That's to find a good concordance. Nowadays, thank God, because of the internet, you can do searches. If you type in the word faith, you'll find hundreds of scriptures. And I tell people to read those, prayer, you know, thankfulness, things like that. Then I would have people do word studies. And then, Mike, after that, I would have people not, if you're talking about someone that's never read the Bible before, I would not start them in the King James myself. Don't get mad at me for that either. I love the King James. That's the number one Bible that I use. But I also use other Bibles. So if I met someone today by the name of Jeff who had never read the Bible before, I would not hand him a King James Bible. I would probably hand him either like maybe an NIV or even the Message Bible. The Message Bible is my favorite, or one of my favorites, because I love that it just speaks in such plain English. A lot of times, if I read something in King James, I'll go to the Message or the Living Bible, and it really brings, excuse me, it brings it to life for me. What about you, Mike? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with what you said about the Old Testament. Probably less about, well, mostly because I think a lot of people sort of start out in Genesis and they want to get through the Bible. And if you've never studied the Bible, you've never gone through it, it's really easy to sort of get bogged down in the Pentateuch, in the first five books of the Bible, because it doesn't move quite as quickly as, say, the Gospels. Uh, and so I completely agree with that. I think the Gospels is a good way to go. And as far as versions go, I would probably, I don't read the Message personally. I do use the NLT version occasionally for like daily reading. And what do you
You
do
don't like
with
the message. You don't like
I,
the
I don't
message, huh?
it's a little
Me and
too
Mike have fun with our little differences. It's fun though. And we ought to be able to have that, right? I ought to be
absolutely.
able to slam you and you ought to be able to slam me in a fun way and
I didn't slam
we
you. I just
do.
said I don't read it. It's, you can go ahead and read it. That's fine. I'll pray for you. You'll be all right. But actually, let me ask you a question based on that same, what we were just talking about. Do you personally, and of course, you've been studying the Bible for a long time. Do you have like a personal study plan that you use every day? Do you I know some people, like, there's 31 proverbs, so they read one every day of the month. Do you follow any sort of plan like that, or do you have a different mechanism that you use?
For me, Mike, I'm honest in telling you, I don't have the greatest devotion um, consistency in my life. You know,
Structure.
I don't. I'm honest in telling you. Do I love the Bible? Yes. Do I make it a practice to study it devotionally? Yes. The trap you can get into when you're preaching 3 or 4 times a week is you're always studying for a message. And so you can fall into a trap to always be studying to teach or preach and not really studying devotionally. I don't think God's upset about that because you're still getting the word in you. So for me, Mike, the way I do a proverb a day. I do read a whole chapter a day because it takes me through the book of Proverbs 12 times a year. And I honestly believe that the only way to have real success in every area of your life is to follow the principles of the Proverbs. So I'm literally want to spend from now until when I die mastering the Proverbs principles because I believe it will lead to a life of wealth, health, beautiful relationships, closeness to God, integrity, character, good parenting, good business, good friendships. I think the answer to everything is in the book of Proverbs. So whether I ever read another part of the Bible or not, I'm always, which I will, I'm just
Yeah.
making a statement.
Right.
I'll
Right.
always read the book of Proverbs, if that makes sense to you. And then I do word studies. I don't read the Bible through a year. I know that's a good goal to have, and it's a good accomplishment if you do it. I don't. I read according to what God is dealing with me about or what's going on in my life.
Sure.
So, whatever's going on in your life or whatever God's dealing with you about, I would read in that area. But no matter what, I would always read the book of Proverbs. Maybe some of our viewers have some thoughts on that, Mike.
That's good. I like what you just said too about the topical word study, because when you take the word of God in context of your life, it seems to have, that's where you really, when you can put things into action immediately, because it deals with a situation of your life, whether it's through the preached word or through your personal study. That when you put it in action, that's when you really internalize it and it becomes part of who you are. So I like that topical study that you just mentioned. Um, I personally, I read the Bible through every year. I use a plan on my phone, of course, which makes it really easy with Bible stuff. And I read the Gospels every 30 days as well, and then one proverb a day. So, and that's really,
One
that only
chapter
takes
or one proverb?
one chapter.
Mike, let's next Wednesday, let's get our man Jeff on and let's have him talk about what he's sharing here because he says he teaches people how to rightly divide the word. I think that
Yeah,
is important, Jeff. And I wouldn't mind bringing him on camera next week and giving
yeah.
him five
Let's
or 10 minutes to share that.
let's do that. Let's plan that, Jeff. And I totally agree with what he's saying as well, because again, context is key. Without the proper context to frame what you're reading, you can completely misunderstand, and that's powerful. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. So we're at about a minute and a half, Matt. And I've got a couple of other questions here, but uh, I want to remind everybody, first of all, about the Soul Winner show that's coming up today, and then ask if you have any closing thoughts.
Yeah, the Soul Winner show is every Wednesday at noon on Spreecast as well. I'll be putting a link on my Twitter and Facebook here in about 2 minutes. I've enjoyed being with all of you. Thank you so much. My final thoughts are this because this is about spirituality. Mike, I've really gotten close to God, and I have really discovered that God literally, the Bible says this, He gives grace to the humble. When you're honest with God and you're real, God's going to give you grace. It's when you start becoming secretive and you start becoming fake and you become insincere and you start trying to snow God. You're not going to snow God, my friends. He
Right.
knows every thought you think. So there's times that I just literally lay it out and tell God what my temptation is, what I'm struggling with, what I'm fighting with. And there's been healing in that for me, Mike. And I feel like I'm closer to God now than I've ever been. And I think the reason for that is because I'm no longer afraid of God. I don't believe God's mad at me. You know what changed my life? And I'm leaving you with this. Last year I was praying, and the Lord literally spoke to me, Mike, and He said, Matt, I will love you and take care of you the same way that you love and take care of Caleb. That forever changed my life, Mike. I have zero fear. I feel so much peace. I feel so close to God. If God is going to love me, and I'm going to weep right now, if God is going to love me the way that I love my son, and if God is going to take care of me and look out for me the way that I look out and take care of Caleb, I'm going to have a really good life. God's
Amen.
definitely got my back. And that set me free. That changed me. I can't even tell you because I know how much I love Caleb. I know what I would do for him. And
Right.
I feel like there's a mirror there. And I feel bad for those that don't have a good father. You know, many of us didn't, right? Many of us are better fathers than what we received. But I will tell you this, our whole relationship, it's like a mirror of how I am with Caleb and how God is with me, even in the things that I teach Caleb and the way sometimes I correct him. I feel like God does the same for me. And the way that God sometimes is strong and corrects me from my own. I know when I correct Caleb, it's because what I want his future to be.
Right.
I see what he doesn't see, and I know what I'm trying to develop him to become. So we'll see you at noon, my friends, for the Soul Winner Show if you're able to come back. If not, you can look at it later at soulwinner.tv. Mike, some good things you share with us today, my friend. For your birthday, I'll be sending you a message Bible, buddy. Can't wait for you to start reading it.
All right, my friend. God bless everyone. Thank you so much.
Love you guys. Thank you so much.